Welcome back. As I mentioned, we are going to discuss Dying 101 with Michael and Gail. Well, welcome both of you to the show. We were just talking off camera that it's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Well, welcome back after all this time. We appreciate you being here. Now, of course, as I mentioned in the opener, dying is a very difficult subject to talk about. And, whether you're 25 years old or you're 105 years old, I don't think it ever gets any easier.
No.
But before we actually get into that subject matter, let's learn a little bit about both of you. Gail, why don't you start?
Okay. My husband and I had an advertising agency in Orange County with offices throughout the state. I have a background in medicine and in group therapy.
Okay.
Now, currently, unfortunately, my husband has passed. He was very involved with us with the book and one of our co-writers.
Okay.
And a therapist himself. So.
Okay. And did he have a terminal illness?
He did. He had mesothelioma.
Okay.
And passed March 5th. We were locked down March 13th.
Oh, wow.
So fortunately, he died prior.
Yeah, because it's been so much more difficult, I think, for people who weren't able to be with their loved ones. Oh, we could do it virtually, but really not holding their hands. Totally not the same thing, which maybe we'll talk a little bit about. Michael, how about you?
Well, thank you so much for having us. This is really exciting for us. I have been involved in end-of-life care for 40 years, if you can believe that. I started out as a volunteer in a program in Western Pennsylvania and worked the night shift. And so one of the things that's really fascinating is that that's when people die. We have a lot more deaths at night, and I think it's lower energy, and they actually die because they can.
Yeah.
No one's holding them here.
Right.
I've kind of dedicated my life in working in hospice and palliative medicine, and so this is always just all part of the experience for us.
Right. Now you're with Memorial Care, is that correct, or you're
but
not now?
I'm not representing them here.
Yes.
My views and things like that are mine, and
Yes.
I do work as a social worker.
Okay.
And I manage end-of-life care and see people at the very end every day.
Okay. Okay. So, how did the two of you come together to write this book?
Well, it's decades in the making. It's decades in the
Yes,
making.
it is.
It is. I was a kid and joined a support group that was in Orange County, and Gail happened to be one of its members, and I'll let her tell you why.
We were an AIDS Services Foundation, and at that particular time, I had a terminal illness. I wanted a support group with other people who were end stage. I did not want to go into a normal support group for people who are ill. Due to a good friend, therapist, they made a phone call. Second phone call was made. They decided that they would ask the group if they could have a woman who did not have AIDS. And the guy said, "She's dying. What difference does it make? Invite her in."
Okay.
So I found myself not only doing a support group with them, but a therapy group and a women's group. And that was in the late 80s. The early 90s, Michael came in.
Okay.
And I was asked to be a co-facilitator because I had experience with the group. And as I stated, my background is in medicine. So we did that group 6-8 years.
Yeah, and the thing that was fascinating is Gail basically became more stable in her own medical situation, and she wanted to contribute, she wanted to give back, and that was a way for her to do that.
Right.
And we had a lot of fun. And
had a lot of fun. Okay, but wait.
Okay.
But you said you had a terminal illness, but you're here.
Yes.
So how is that
possible? Because the group primarily had professional people in it from the very beginning.
Okay.
And several of them were physicians.
Okay.
And the guys decided that I was going to live, that I had the best chance of living. So one of the gentlemen networked me to a research program at UCLA. And I was properly diagnosed because at the time I had acute viral hepatitis. And they finally diagnosed me with Hep C.
I see.
And I was in a program for 5 years for interferon. So I went into remission. And
great.
I swear it was because of their support, their love,
Right.
their kindness, they're willing to sacrifice themselves in a lot of ways so that I could survive.
Yeah, yeah. That's, you know what, and that is probably one of the key things, and we'll talk a little bit about that, about what you talk about in your book, is having someone, it doesn't matter if it's a loved one or not, supporting you, loving you, making sure that you're all right. I mean, you deal with this on a regular basis.
Absolutely. One of the things that Gail didn't mention is that she and I had been apart for some years, and we got reconnected because she took an experimental medication and basically is now.
I'm in remission.
She's completely in remission at this
Fantastic.
point in time from that particular drug.
Right.
One of the things that happened is that as we kind of moved through the group, and our work with the group was very intense, we found that we were trying to share the information to a larger audience. And so we started thinking, well, let's do a pamphlet, or let's make a flyer that kind of gets people up to speed on dealing with end of life and dealing with the last chapter of their life. You have to remember the average age in this group was probably 35, 40 years old.
Yeah. Right.
I was that same age at the time, and so it was pretty intense. I mean, we were
bet.
dealing with people who looked like us and acted like us and had all the life experience, and it was getting cut short. What we found that was helpful to them is having conversations and participating in a group and participating in life with each other and talking about these issues.
Right.
In a lot of respects, people don't want to listen to you.
Well, of course they don't, and because they're in denial most of the time, I would imagine that they're not going to die. I mean, most of the time we think, oh, it's never going to happen to me, but it does, right? And so you both wrote about this particular subject matter in a book called Dying 101.
Right.
It was a gift and a thank you to those groups of people, because there were hundreds of them. We're not talking about people who knew they were going to survive. We're talking about people who knew that they had a death sentence. So we wanted to share what we had learned. And my husband, by the way, was doing significant other family and friends. So the three of us were involved for, well, I was there for 12 years.
Right.
So it was our thank you. It was our gift to them.
Okay.
It is a conversation. The book is based on years of being together in a support group. And all you can do in a support group is talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's the important talk
Correct.
that everyone
Extremely.
needs to have,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's
Absolutely.
terminal or not.
Yes.
I mean, when you have an elderly parent, you know, that's going to happen at some point, how do you sit down and talk about that? So that's what
Yeah.
this book does
Yeah.
generally guide you to do,
Absolutely.
right?
It takes you
Okay.
from getting the news to leaving the planet and everything in between.
Right.
One of the things that we kind of think about it, the professional folks who buy the book actually don't necessarily want to read it themselves either. They want it on their coffee table.
Oh, to start the conversation.
So that when
Yes.
people come in,
Yeah.
you get a sense whether or not your client is open to having the discussion.
Right.
Generally, they are.
Yes.
And they are looking for a safe space
Safe
to
space.
have that conversation. And our goal was really to say, you know what, there's a lot of stuff you need to talk about, and you
Yeah.
need to get started while you still can.
Well, you both are obviously extremely experienced in this subject matter, and now you have the book, and also I imagine that you do talks.
Yes.
And that you have support groups.
Yes.
How can someone get in touch with you if they really would like to know more information?
I think they can do a little bit of research and go on to our website, michaelandgail.com.
Okay.
And there's access to the book, and there's access to our video blog that
Okay.
basically you can see all the conversations kind of in real life. Gail and I having the conversation together. Gail plays a very good patient because she is.
Because I
Well, because
am.
you are, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's perfect, that's
Yes.
perfect.
And allegedly I play a pretty good therapist. So.
You okay? Well, good. Well, I really think this is, like you said, it's a conversation that people need to have, either terminal illness or not. And I appreciate you sharing this information with us today. And
you.
we are going to give away one of these books to the person that answers the question: which ailment did they both were they both part of a support group of? And if you can give me that information, please email it to Laguna Woods Village TV at gmail.com with your answer, and you will get this beautifully signed
Yes.
Dying 101 book. So thank you both so much. We appreciate it.
No, thank you very much.
Thank
for having
you,
us.
Lisa. Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this.